Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Godzilla Minus One, of course written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki, which is released in UK cinemas this Friday the 15th of December. It's already out in America, and of course it's already out in Japan. A film I'm very excited for, probably my last big film for 2023 in respect to wanting to go to the cinema to see an event film, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that behind the scenes as well as a few other Godzilla related things that have popped up recently. But as always, getting into this, I do want to hear from everybody at home, so please do comment your thoughts on Godzilla Minus One, your thoughts on Godzilla as a series, as a franchise. Maybe you're currently watching the Monarch series streaming on Apple. It's a good time to be a Godzilla fan. There's been a Godzilla X Kong trailer for next year as well. Yeah, it's looking good for the kaiju fans. So I want to hear a little bit from people who respect that. I'm going to give my thoughts on this film. I'm going to keep them spoiler free. There's a lot I want to talk about. There's a lot I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to keep it spoiler free with respect to maybe not the story, but maybe character arcs, certain characters, because there's a lot with this film that I absolutely adored. And there's stuff that I think the colder people go in with, the better their experience may be. And it's a film I actually want to revisit down the line without putting something out there about potential series on the channel. This is definitely a film I'd really like to talk about in more detail with some other people at another time, another place, maybe soon. It's the 70th anniversary of Godzilla, of course. Well, next year it is. But yes, Godzilla Minus One. My thoughts heading into the film. I love Godzilla. I like Japanese cinema. I studied it when I was younger at school. I've always had a keen interest in it. And I think just as a child, subconsciously, you're aware of Godzilla. You think of the Power Rangers as well. Shout out to Sam, because he always brings it up with me as well. And the stuff you grew up watching, you look at the origins of them, where it's developed from. A lot of the time it has developed from Japanese cinema and stuff like that. You go back to Godzilla and things like that. So I've been looking forward to this. And this film, forgive me if I'm wrong, it wasn't announced as a Godzilla film for a while. It was, I've got to feel, the last 6 months maybe, that it came out that they'd shot this Godzilla film. It was going to be a period piece set before the first Godzilla film in 54, and this was going to be the anniversary film for Godzilla. And I was really intrigued by that. And if I'm honest, I actually tried to stay away from as much as I could with respect to trailers and details after, because I was sold. I was just hoping that the UK is going to get a release. We had that confirmed for the 15th. It was previewed earlier at Cineworld, which is why I've seen it. It's getting an IMAX release, which is remarkable. And normally you'll see me jumping on about wanting to watch films in IMAX. I didn't get to see this in IMAX. The preview wasn't in IMAX. It's getting a very, very, very limited IMAX release. I was going to wait till the weekend. My IMAX is showing it once in IMAX, and I can't go to that time or day, which is really frustrating. I'm actually going to go one step further. I really want to watch this film in 4DX, and I know I spoke about Top Gun Maverick last year a lot with 4DX. I really want to watch this film in 4DX, and you're not going to hear me say that about other things. Something about this, it would be an experience I want to watch it in. But even my nearest 4DX cinema, and I don't know if maybe the whole of the UK is just not getting this in 4DX too, but severely disappointed because there's a lot of potential there. But that's not to talk about the film. That's just ways you can watch this film. And isn't it great that a Japanese film is getting an IMAX release in the United Kingdom? Yes, it's Godzilla, but it's not an American adaptation of Godzilla. It is an original production from again, celebrating that 70th anniversary. And it instantly made me actually go back to Skyfall, where you take an iconic character, from Japanese culture is Godzilla, the same way Bond is British, and they're putting everything into this anniversary film. And I'm going to kind of kickstart this. I spoke about being hype heading into it. I've seen the design of Godzilla. Again, you can't avoid all the posters. You can't avoid little clips here and there, especially when it's released in other countries. So what I was hearing was great. And everyone I know that went to the press screenings, everybody I know that's seen it in the States has loved it so far. And that's now built up more and more hype heading into this today. Of course, even Gareth Edwards having a film come out a couple of months ago is great, because then you were going back to Godzilla 2014. I recommended it recently on our film for the weekend. And then, to add more hype to this, I picked up the Criterion Godzilla collection. Gosh, that sounds so snobbish. I don't normally buy Criterion. I just wanted a Godzilla box set. It was reduced massively last year's Black Friday, and it's sold out everywhere. I've literally waited a year. Black Friday came this year. I took my chance, so I was able to finally pick up the box set. And probably one of the best things I've done in a long time. I watched for the very first time the original 1954 Godzilla film. I watched it last week. I want to watch all of them. There's 15 in the box set. I actually want to watch the entirety of the Godzilla series, saga, era, franchise, whatever you want to call this 70-year history of Godzilla, but you got to begin in 54. And I'm so glad I watched that before this, because this film has so many amazing callbacks and homages to that. Whether you're thinking about the soundtrack, whether you're thinking about certain story components, the design of Godzilla, I'd actually say to anyone curious to watch this, I am keeping this spoiler free. If you can access it, I don't know if it's streaming in the UK. I don't know if it's been released individually on Blu-ray. My understanding is I think the Criterion is maybe one of the only ways to get it. It's certainly out on DVD. Please watch this film. If you're not going to watch it before, straight after the original. Minus One isn't a prequel in the aspect that it doesn't begin as the next one does or stuff like that. I didn't know what to expect heading in. But it's an anniversary film, and you can certainly see a lot of those things coming into the anniversary, which is great. And it's the little minor details that really add to that. And it could be something as simplistic as a train sequence, knowing that was done in 1954, or you're bringing the theme, or you're referencing it through other actions. This film as an anniversary film works wonders. I can't sit here and say I know every reference, I know what it's trying to do, but what I do know is that it's paying respect to that original while doing its own thing. No doubt there will be other influences from other Godzilla films I haven't seen, so I can imagine there's a lot more. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the story. The story for this film is absolutely outstanding. I'm not going to go into character details. One of the big drawbacks, I guess, of certainly the American Godzilla films has been terribly uninteresting characters being given so much of the limelight that takes it away from Godzilla, and that's something that monster films as a genre struggles with. No one's got the budget to be able to have a monster on screen for 2 hours, and I do think it can lose its magic if a monster would be on screen for 2 hours. I absolutely adore Kong Skull Island. Again, that had some more interesting human characters, better villains, one fantastic character, but was still let down by that. Same thing with 2014's one going off recent memory of Godzilla. You've got the amazing Bryan Cranston storyline, and he's killed off 20 minutes in, and now we get Aaron Taylor Johnson instead. I like Aaron Taylor Johnson, but his character didn't have much depth, and I was completely blown away by the characters in this film. The story arcs they've done, the specific era this is set in, post World War II Japan, more so than 1954 before the original. Again, I'd avoided a lot of the stuff heading into this, and they were able to take on board a really important time in the history of Japan, recovering from after World War II. And if you're aware of Japanese culture in the 50s and the rebuilding and loads of other stuff, it's a really actually ballsy story for the Japanese to be doing this in their own production rather than having an American commentating on Japanese cinema. I thought I didn't expect to see it as open as it was looking back at their own history. Maybe it's something that our country does a terrible job of. They're looking back at the mistakes and people's feelings and attitudes of certain eras, whilst the UK will try and hide it, dismantle it, say it didn't exist. This film does a really phenomenal job at diving into the issues that the Japanese people faced after World War II. Ex-soldiers, certainly, responsibilities of those in the war, for following orders, all that kind of stuff. This film is fantastic, and full credit for the script for doing so, for developing characters. It's not just one or two characters. Almost every character in this film has a story arc which is remarkable, and I just think it's very powerful, to the point where there's one or two scenes where I was emotional. Yes, it's a Godzilla film. Didn't expect that, but they're able to do so much with these characters in 2-hour runtime as well, plus being a Godzilla film, plus being in the anniversary. It's outstanding, and I really am going to continue to compliment it for that. This is quite comfortably one of my films of the year. It is sat surely in the top 10 if I'm going to do a ranking, maybe the top 5. And I did not expect that from a Godzilla film, if I'm being completely honest, because when I think of a Godzilla film, I think of Godzilla destroying cities, being a threat, or fighting other monsters, stuff like that. One of the massive strengths of this film. Let's strip the mechanics of Godzilla back to its absolute basics. You go back to that 1954 original. Godzilla's the villain of the film. Maybe with the American culture, he's been, certainly now we've got the Monsterverse, we've got him and Kong teaming up in weird running sequences and Infinity Gauntlets, we've got the whole anti-hero idea, which I know has been a thing with Godzilla in its history. It wouldn't be going for 70 years if he was a villain every time. But I've really enjoyed that this was stripped back to his basics. And how would we do Godzilla in the year 2023 set in those late 40s? And they absolutely nailed it. He is terrifying in this. It is so exciting, And I'm going to talk about the budget. This has been spoken about, the visual effects, the writing. Supposedly, the budget for this is like $10 to $15 million. For the film to look like this is extraordinary. Now, I know it's obviously funded in Japan. It's been produced in Japan. It'd be very different, i.e. what $15 million could do in Japan versus in America, for example. But looking at the environment, looking at the state of the industry, we're seeing $200, $300 million films that look worse than a $10 million Japanese film, which should not be the case when the $10 million film is a Godzilla film, and it looks better than things, 10, 20 times its budget. It's not right, and it's amazing that this film is done very well financially, actually, in America. I'm going to add, of course, it's done well in Japan, and I really hope this continues to do well. It's a lovely sort of feel-good story, but it feels like an event. It feels like a cinematic event to go to. And again, you're not just getting that because of Godzilla, you're getting that because of the depth of the characters, because of the story. Got an outstanding soundtrack in there as well. I loved every minute of this. I was invested from the first scene through to the end again. I enjoy my politics, I enjoy my history at school. So I'm geared towards enjoying this, what it's trying to do, what the story is trying to tell us about what happened after World War II. And at the same time, I like seeing Godzilla. And not that I'm going to do a favourite scene type thing, I probably am, but when I say Godzilla is terrifying in this film, it's because we are seeing Godzilla, an introduction to Godzilla going back to its roots in such a horrific way, where there are so many uncomfortable moments because we're seeing what would happen if a giant thing of this size was walking around a city in the 1940s, where we don't have the tech ops day, we don't have the army, the significance, the stuff like that, and it's just a struggle to not maybe talk about this film, but to sort of not speak so fondly of it. And it's not that I'm trying to find criticisms of this film, I can't find any, but I'm just completely taken back as to what this film has ended up being, what I've took away from it. And it makes it tricky to do a review on this because I want to talk more. I want to talk about individual moments. I want to talk about spoilers, and I know I can't. And maybe there'll be a spoiler discussion down the line. Maybe there'll be a Godzilla series down the line. Who knows? Because next year, of course, is that 70th anniversary. And as I said, there's a lot of Godzilla things happening at the moment. But if I'm going to stick to talking about Minus One, I feel like I'm shortening this review. I'm recording this like 1 a.m. I'm doing this review because I want to do this review ASAP because I had such a phenomenal time. And I really do think people should take the time to go see it at the big screen. Seeing Godzilla on the big screen is a sight that will never get old, from the sound design, from the atomic breath, and this film in particular utilises the atomic breath in something I've not seen before. I don't know if it's been done in other films, I'm not going to give that away, but the build up to the big moments with Godzilla are just outstanding. And actually, I'm going to compare it at times to Jurassic Park, which is one of Spielberg's best films. How he's able to build up tension, how he's able to shoot with scale whilst doing that. This film is delivering on those fronts. And weirdly enough, I also think of Jaws. Maybe it's the horror element, but there's some really interesting ideas that they do with this and develop it. A lot of it is boats out in the open sometimes. Maybe that's where the Jaws ideology, maybe because I've just mentioned Jurassic Park, Spielberg's drawing me there, but it certainly feels like Jaws at times. Now, the more I'm saying that out loud, the clearer it is that it actually almost is like that. This terrifying ordeal. How do you defeat this monster? And I'm struggling not to think about Jaws now. I'm not going to go and rewatch Jaws because I'm terrified of sharks. I'm going to watch some more Godzilla films. But yeah, a weird way to end a review. I don't know how to end this review because I've had such a good time doing it. I'm not going to sit here and out to Godzilla series, but it's something I've spoken about in the past, and maybe next year I do some Godzilla reviews on the channel. Maybe you guys want to comment if you want to see something like that, because I've always wanted to go through the history of Godzilla. I'm planning a trip to Japan in 2025 for Star Wars Celebration. I want to learn a bit of Japanese next year, and with sort of doing Japanese cinema when I was younger, I'd like to watch more Japanese films and whatnot. So maybe that's something that's just starting to click into place. And if I do it for the channel, if not my own personal life, obviously there'll be an announcement of sorts, so you can get us on our social medias. But going back to the Godzilla Minus One review, go see this at the big screen when it opens. Please say it gets to 4DX in the UK. I just want to experience something as insane as this. Like Top Gun Maverick was insanity to a great degree, but I want to see how they do atomic breath in a cinema, no puns intended. I want to just see how this would be in 4DX. Yes, it's a gimmick, but I've seen the film now, and now I want to see the film again like this. Make it a possibility. Someone somewhere, please. So that's going to round out this review. It's a glaring positive from me. See it on the biggest screen you can. I'm sure it's going to sound great in IMAX. And oh, by the way, the theme. when they decide to drop the Godzilla theme, it is so worth it. Not that I'm an American, not that I'm going to fist bump in a cinema, but it's the closest I've ever been to wanting to do that in a cinema. I just had absolute joyous expressions watching this film. Shouldn't be so exciting to watch Godzilla destroy cities, but you know what? It always is when it's done right, and this film delivers. So that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you enjoy it on the big screen. Comment your thoughts if you've already seen it, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.